On August 12, 2026, Docker shipped the public beta of Docker VMM, a virtualization engine it built and owns end-to-end. Until now, Docker Desktop borrowed someone else's Hypervisor, Apple's virtualization framework on Mac, WSL2 and Hyper-V on Windows. If you enable this beta, you're changing the layer underneath every container you run, and there are two known gaps worth knowing before you do. Before this, the VM that hosts your containers ran on borrowed infrastructure, Apple's virtualization framework on Mac, WSL2 layered on Hyper-V on Windows. Docker couldn't tune either one specifically for how containers actually use memory and disk. Now Docker owns that layer directly on both platforms, tuned specifically for container workloads, and shared with Docker sandboxes too. The trade-off: it's opt-in during the beta, and Linux as a Docker desktop host isn't supported until general availability. Docker VMM needs Docker Desktop 4.86 or later. Check your installed version first. The toggle simply won't appear on older releases. Before switching, open Settings, Resources, and confirm your Docker Linux VM has at least 4 GB of memory allocated. Switching with less is the fastest way to get a confusing, unrelated-looking failure on first restart. Enabling it is one toggle: Settings, General, Virtual Machine Manager, select Docker VMM, then Apply and Restart. On Windows this doesn't uninstall WSL2, it just stops Docker Desktop from using it as the VM backend. Docker's performance goals: faster startup and restart recovery, faster file I/O for your edit compile test loop, smarter memory reclamation when containers sit idle, and on Windows, Hyper-V level isolation without the usual speed trade-off. No hard benchmark numbers were published. Treat these as directional, and time your own workload. The single most common break after switching: bind mount autoshares don't carry over. If a container that used to mount a directory automatically suddenly throws a file sharing error, go add that path manually under Settings, Resources, File Sharing. 2 gaps Docker has flagged directly. Rosetta emulation of ARM64 images on Apple Silicon performs poorly, and MongoDB or Cassandra containers can fail on VirtUFS because of how they do low-level file I/O. If either applies to you, test before you switch your daily driver machine. Pilot this on one machine before rolling it out to a whole team. Pre-add your file shares deliberately instead of discovering each one via a failed container. And if you need Linux host support, that's targeted for general availability around the end of October 2026. The mistakes that actually bite: switching on a machine you need working in an hour with no rollback plan, assuming WSL2 disappears on Windows, skipping the memory bump first, and trusting Docker's performance claims instead of timing your own build. To sum up, it's a first-party hypervisor requiring Docker Desktop 4.86, one toggle turns it on, and the same toggle rolls it back. The biggest gotcha is re-adding your bind mount file shares manually, and general availability is targeted for the end of October 2026, when it becomes the default for new installs. The full written guide, with every step and both known compatibility gaps, is on the blog, link in the description. Subscribe for daily cloud and DevOps breakdowns.